we are back with a 1-0 pod for the first time in a while. I'm Seth Engle,
I'm Zach Allen.
and we are in full-on summer mode. Zach's over in Pittsburgh right now. I'm back
Yeah.
home in Chicago. I think we're gonna go to the beach today. The beach that we have though is like on concrete. It's kind of weird on Lake Michigan.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still getting acclimated to the Pittsburgh area, but in Virginia, we got like Virginia Beach 2 hours away from me. So,
Yeah. Not quite like Lake Michigan, but it's we got nice weather today, so we're gonna make it work. But anyway, so things are happening slowly but surely in the Penn State football world. Yesterday there was some big scheduling news from Pete Thamel at ESPN that Penn State could be adjusting its schedule for its Week 12 matchup against Michigan State, which I know the program is not too happy about. Gives them a short week. So basically, what's happening here is um, NBC and the Big Ten prematurely scheduled a couple games without fully, finishing their contractual agreement. So there was lost revenue, and to make up for that, a couple teams had to make concessions. So Penn State is going to bite the bullet a little bit here and move their Week 12 game at Michigan State from Saturday now to Black Friday, which is, I mean, it sucks for people who celebrate Thanksgiving,
yeah,
especially East Coast people. But then also it sucks for players who are going to have, one less day to prepare for their final game of the regular season.
yeah. I mean, talk about Thanksgiving. I mean, I'd have to drive up, but it's not about me. It's about the program. And, I think a short week in any league is just a downside. I mean, you look at the NFL, teams hate when they have to play Monday night and then sometimes Thursday night. And it's the same in college. I mean, yeah, it moved up a day, um, which isn't necessarily the biggest deal in the world, but it's still a deal in its own right. And I know ever since these new broadcasting rights have gotten into place, I feel like there's just been general unhappiness around Penn State's, especially fan base. The big noon kickoff being replaced, and now this this uh, this thing going on. Well, it hasn't been a good first month. Now we for the new Big Ten commissioner. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah. What's interesting to me is like I don't know if we'll see this more. Obviously this is something kind of more of a grand scheme. Um, as the NCAA shifts more into a professional model, with NIL and all this personal marketing, and just general money making, if we start to see maybe like midweek games like the NFL does it, um, and then those short weeks, you're able, how the NFL does it, where it's like if you play on like Thursday night, like you're playing on, but you either have like a bye or something, or they make it work in the schedule. Like I wonder if college football might adopt that, or if they're just going to keep having it on Saturdays. Um, I think the Black Friday thing is interesting because Penn State used to do that with Pitt, all the time. That was like their slot with Pitt was to play on Black Friday, um, which is cool. Like if that's like your tradition.
Yeah,
With Michigan State, it's kind of just like, okay, like we are just, gonna bite the bullet for you here because you guys are losing revenue. I guess moving forward with scheduling, Penn State did get two primetime games. So you can complain all you want about the big noon and all that, and it takes away from, the Michigan and Ohio State whiteouts, but at the end of the day, they're still getting two primetime slots um this season. So I think that'll be fun.
yeah. I mean, big noon kickoff. It really just affects what the potential whiteout is. But on the flip side, we get um, whiteout opponents that Penn State hasn't played in a while or ever during the game. Because I know they had that long streak. It was just Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan, Ohio State, Michigan. Now Penn State's had Minnesota last year, which wasn't the greatest opponent to play in the whiteout. But now Iowa, I think, will be a great game. And I know there was some talk about maybe potentially West Virginia being the whiteout because it was the only other primetime kick, and it seems like the whiteout has more effect at night rather than the day. Just the white and the night kind of conflict and stick out better.
There were question marks. I know there was this whole debate before it was announced as the Iowa game of like, okay, like, is it going to be a Michigan noon or maybe an Iowa midday, or is it going to be
First week of the
night
season.
game for week one? Like, those seem to be the three options. And I think that the reason behind that and the reason why they were able to make it an Iowa night game was because people didn't really read the fine print of that CBS contract. It's so confusing right now with these new media rights deals with the Big Ten, especially in the first year where everyone's just trying to figure it out. So basically, CBS does not have their designated 3:30 time slot like they've had with the SEC for the past couple decades. Like they're the 3:30, network, and they will be the case with the Big Ten too, after this season because they are still under contract with SEC for this year. So until then, they just have basically like, excuse me, like 7 games that they just play at different times. Like the Big Ten's just like, here, carry this, and these are your games for the year. And then next year it'll be designated to solely 3:30. So a lot of people forgot about the fact that, okay, CBS isn't necessarily running with that 3:30 slot this year. And I guess the Big Ten kind of just like gifted it to them and was like, here's the whiteout for your first year under our branch. So that's basically how that was able to happen. I think it's perfect. I think Iowa's going to be competitive this year. I'm interested to see what an Iowa team looks like with a competent quarterback. So
Yeah.
it should be fun and it'll be under the lights. So, I think it was the right choice.
Yeah, I mean, Penn State and Iowa are always competitive. So I I don't know. I don't think most people wanted to see season opening whiteout. I could be wrong, but Iowa just felt like the better choice between the two.
Yeah,
And
Iowa's also going to be more competitive than West
yeah,
Virginia.
and again, Michigan at noon. I don't know. The daytime whiteout is a very different atmosphere.
Yeah. Um, and other than that, I mean, we are in full on recruiting trail right now. It's summer, so it's camps. Not too much football news going on outside of this high school recruiting and Penn State kind of putting together their 2024 class, which it's been successful so far. I think it says a lot about where the program is going with NIL and I think the recruiting staff is as large and branches out to, you know, depths that it hasn't, kind of reached since Franklin was hired. I think this is a staff that's really building and improving. So Penn State just got their quarterback for 2024, Ethan Grunkmeyer, who I think has kind of flown under the radar for much of this recruiting process.
Yeah, it feels like he's gonna rise by the time he steps on campus because just looking at his highlight tape, granted they are highlights, but I mean I just wrote an article on this. He looks great just throwing on the run. He's a right-handed quarterback, but he's still accurate throwing on the run more than just a short distance, even if he's rolling to his left. And, you know, people throw this term around a lot, sneaky athleticism, but I think Ethan Grunkmeyer is the definition of that. I know his Twitter bio says he runs a 4.78 40, and when you look at his tape, there was one run from his junior year. He made like two guys miss and had a 50-yard touchdown. And it kind of reminded me of Sean Clifford's run at Michigan this year, where he just had open field and just ran the entire field. And Sean Clifford didn't score that one, but I think the Grunk, I'm gonna nickname him, is he's not a 5-star prospect like Drew Aller was, and he's not a 4-star right now. But I think as this recruiting circuit goes on, he just accepted a bid to the Elite 11 finals. It's almost similar to Jackson Smolik last year, where Penn State gets a 3-star quarterback and then they outperform their ranking. So I don't know what your thoughts are about him, but I think he's on the rise for sure.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Aller. We've seen Penn State dip into Ohio for a low-ranked 3-star who then rises up the rankings. Obviously, Drew became, one of the top players in that recruiting class. I'm not saying that Grunk, as you call him, is going to be, the same way, but I think we could see him rise. I think Penn State, I think Mike Yurcich especially has found success in finding some of these more low-profile guys. I think Bo Prabula is a guy that I saw in this guy's tape. Was just, I know Yurcich doesn't like to use the term dual threat, but I mean, it is like he can run and he can pass, and that's basically the bottom line. So I think stockpiling your team with kind of as many under the radar guys as you can, and taking a gamble is kind of the best way you can do it if you're struggling to bring in the top quarterbacks in the country, as Penn State kind of has done for most of eternity. So
and
I think it's a good commitment. What were you gonna say?
I was just gonna add he's also training with Drew Aller's quarterback coach that he trained with, Brad Mandler. I hope I didn't butcher the last name, but I think it's Penn State, I think, has started to dip into states where they really haven't before. Obviously, New Jersey with Jalen Matthews, and now a lot more on the Ohio front too. I think it goes back to what you said with the whole NIL and focus on the recruiting staff. It's really starting to pay off.
Well, recruiting staff and the coaching staff. Yurcich is an Ohio guy through and through. So whenever you're recruiting a quarterback or an offensive player that's from Ohio, and your offensive coordinator is an Ohioan himself with coaching experience at Ohio State and now at a big time program like Penn State, like that definitely plays a role. Like Brad, I mean, Yurcich only grew up like an hour from Drew Aller. So I mean, they're pretty close by.
And Grunk's high school is only like an hour and a half from Drew Aller's. I looked it up.
Yeah. So they're building something there. It's May, so there's a lot of time until fall camp starts, but things are coming together. As we say every week, this season never ends. It's there's constantly something going on. Who knows what the next big breakthrough is going to be? We could see some stuff happen in June and July. So we'll be here to discuss. This is 1-0 Pod. I'm Seth and Zach. And follow us along at collegian.psu.edu online and at Collegian Footblog on Twitter. Peace.